Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Roger's Real-Time Talk Show event. I'm Roger Hanson, your host, with my co-host Mark Edworthy and my brother Robert Hanson, as well as Bob Dub. Welcome to the show, guys. So
Hey.
now, um, we started with the first episode for this season. Like Bob Dub, you and Otto had suggested about doing around the room, like we did the first season or the second season, and we gave it a try. We'll give it a try again tonight. It might be a lot easier since you're here. We had Mark Edworthy and Otto last time, and you know how those two are. They're rebellion. They're rambunctious.
We weren't too bad. We weren't too bad.
Yeah, it went pretty good. It went pretty good. But I wanted to just kind of get into that beforehand. What we'll do is we'll do it like we did that time where I'll start out with a talking point, and then we will have somebody on the panel respond to it. Now, while they're responding to it, this is something I do have to add in that I didn't add in last week. Whoever's on the panel has to wait and let them finish with their response. And instead of trying to respond back to what they said, bring it out in your response to me rather than crosstalk with them. Because when it comes to this kind of format, cross-talking is a really, really dangerous thing to get into because then it spirals downward. You know what I mean? So wait until you have your chance to respond to what I said, and then you can mention what the other person says in your response to me.
I'll have to say that we have to try and stick on topic. We try not to use go jump down multiple tangents.
Right, and that will be my job as the moderator. I will make sure that we stay on topic and that we don't crosstalk. Those are the two big no-nos. Okay, so because understand, like when you crosstalk, you're first of all taking away that person's opportunity to speak their mind, and then not only that, but it also takes away your opportunity to do the same thing. Because if I let you crosstalk, then somebody else is going to crosstalk when it's your turn. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind when we do this. So fair enough.
Fair enough.
How about you?
Yeah.
Okay. Now Robert, he is muted out, and he's just now putting his mic on. So he did hear because he's back behind me. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open up. I've been thinking about morality lately. That's one thing that really popped into my head. So I'm going to start out with the first topic, and I'll bring this up and see what your guys' take is on it. But like I said, I've been thinking about morality a lot more lately, and not because I think I'm like a moral person. Hell, I've made enough mistakes to fill a library. But because everywhere I look, people are telling me what morality is. You have politicians, you got professors, you got preachers, you got atheists, activists, scientists, and everybody has the answer, and somehow none of them agree. You know what I mean? Now, with religion, I was asked once, is religion eternal? Okay, or is it just like a collective delusion? And to be honest, I don't know. I really don't. But I know something strange. Human beings have worshipped things since the beginning of recorded history. You can call it gods. You can say kings. You can say the sun, the moon, ancestors, flags, hell, even money. These days, people even worship the state, and maybe now even ideology. You know what I mean? So my first question is where does morality come from? And with that, I want to start it out with Bob Dub and see what her response to that is. Go for it.
Awesome. Thanks, Roger.
Right.
So, as I understand it, morality is something that starts in very young children as an idea of what's fair. My friend lent me his toy, so it's on me to lend him my toy. So it's this sort of innate sense of justice in people. And as you go on and on, you grow up and you go into more complexity, your morality gets more abstract. And it's less about what you're getting out and more about the greater good of the greatest number. Sort of a sort of kindness almost, which is very interesting because kindness is something that's only really come into human societies in the last few thousand years. It's not a feature of the natural world, and it's not a feature of animals specifically. And so it is interesting why we would develop kindness, and I think it's an outpouring, an outshoot, an offshoot maybe of us having communities where we have to cooperate with each other. Because when you cooperate with other people, what happens is that your greatest good is actually to look after them, because then they'll feel kind towards you, they'll feel good feelings towards you. And so you will be better off if the people around you like you and want to do nice things for you. So as I understand it, those are the very, very simplistic roots of morality in human consciousness.
Okay, so one thing that
wasn't that enough?
Sorry, I got to where I was starting to talk without unmuting. I apologize about that. So for me, what it comes down to, if it does come from God, though, then that would also mean that right and wrong don't change, right? But if morality comes from society, well, society changes, every generation basically. So what was morality 50 years ago might get you canceled today, basically. What is morality today might horrify people 100 years from now. So who decides morality? That's one big question that I have. So with that, I want to hand it over. Since I responded to your comment, I'm going to hand it over to Mark and see if he wants to respond to anything that me or you have said.
Okay. Where it comes from? You could argue that there's a nature sort of thing, the nature-nurture argument, where there is an intrinsic sort of moral concepts at birth, yet I'm not absolutely sure if I agree with that. But on the whole, I would argue that this morality is based upon the viewpoint of society as a whole. I'm just thinking of I'll come back to the subject in a minute, because the point of kindness actually comes quite close into this. Kindness is again also related to society as a whole. What could be considered as kind in one society may not necessarily be kind in another society. I mean, before on the last show we were talking about eugenics, and Otto made the point that if somebody has a a degenerative disease that we would like to get rid of as a society. It'd be kinder to that individual, or to the society as a whole, to remove that individual from the population. Whereas other people would argue that is not kind. You could also argue that at one point slavery was a form of kindness, protecting those less fortunate, giving them a purpose, giving them the ability to eat and live under shelter. And we would now say that slavery is not kind. So it's really just a matter of perspective. Morality and kindness are a matter of perspectives. And also, Roger, you raised the idea of morality coming from politicians and religious leaders. I think it's fair to say that a lot of things that, especially coming from politicians, but also religious leaders, may be considered moral in certain circumstances, in certain communities, but may not be considered. So again, it's just a matter of perspective.
Well, I do like your response on that, because it brings me into another area that I've been wanting to bring up here, and I've said too, where as a well, first of all, this is a response to what you were saying, just so everybody knows that now, like with sociology, okay, a lot of people, most people try to separate socialism from sociology, and I have a hard time with that. You know what I mean? So back when I first started getting into this whole topic, I started to read about sociology, and that's where things really got weird for me in my research into this, because sociology, first of all, asks questions like who shapes society, how do values spread, why do people conform, how do institutions influence behavior, and I started to think, that was actually pretty fascinating. But then I started asking, at what point does studying sociology become trying to change society? Or, at what point does studying society basically, becomes trying to change society? So that's basically my response to it.
If I may, I'll just come back on that. When it comes to Persian society, we had a long conversation about nudge units and crangos last week. And yeah, these unelected bureaucrats that decide what society should be moulded into. That's hardly democratic, and arguably that's hardly moral. Because we are leaving the idea of morality to a small group of people. This is true for politicians and religious leaders as well. They determine the moralities rather than morality being a bottom-up sort of concept. On the point of sociology, I was thinking of the UK's online and Australia's online Safe Children Protection Act, and just because you've got something that you may market as moral, in this case, protecting children online, it may manifest into something greater and something much more damaging to society as a whole. In this case, the potential of digital ID, the potential of restricting people's free speech and free expression online.
So with that being said, I'm going to pass on my response to that because we have Tan in the room now, and we got Robert still to go on responding. Now, with the concerns to your responses, you can respond to what I said. You can respond to what Bob Dub or Mark has said. But like I said before when we started it, just try your best not to crosstalk, because like I told him, when you crosstalk, you're taking away from that person being able to speak their mind. And not only that, you're doing it to yourself, because that allows somebody else to crosstalk when you're talking. You know what I mean? So kind of respect one another. And with that, I want to open it up to Tan so that Tan can respond to what we're discussing. What's your thoughts on that?
So we're doing a real debate here, huh?
Yeah. Like professionals.
I missed what Bob said, so I cannot comment on what she said. I only got the tail end of Mark's comment, and Mark seems to be a proponent of some sort of relative morality, where it depends on the perspective. I think that's what Mark said. It's up to the person whether they decide what's moral or not. And I think there's a danger, obvious danger in that belief, is that everybody can be right. And so who's the ultimate arbiter of truth then? I guess it's a kind of a laissez-faire approach, where live and let live, right? I'm doing my stuff, you're doing your stuff. If you believe what's right, then who am I to judge you, kind of thing, right? But my perspective is that you cannot have a relative morality, and morality cannot be decided by a democracy, for example. It's like there's a majority of people decide that this certain thing is right, then it's right. So there needs to be some absolute compass where you need to judge the morality on. And I think all of you have mentioned that it's kind of a intuitive thing that is built into the humanity, where you kind of intuit what's right, what's moral, what's wrong. For example, you don't need to be a religious person to believe that murder is wrong. It's wrong to kill somebody. It's just wrong to kill an innocent person, for example. So where do we get that kind of a belief that murder is wrong, right? Even those people who never, read a word from the Bible, but people from the Far East, for example, who knows nothing about Western philosophy and religion, somehow they come up with the same set of rules that we all think is moral behavior in a society. So yes, there's some truth to it being written in the heart of humanity, where we kind of know what's right and what's wrong to a certain degree, but then at some point you're going to be stuck if you're depending on your own to decide what's right. And so, where do you look for? If you are not, if you don't belong to a religious tradition, you would belong to some sort of societal tradition, right? Where you have people, ancestors, all the way back throughout the ages, they have learned by mistakes what's not to do. You do this, you get hurt. You do so, you stay away from doing that. And over the ages, that kind of knowledge and wisdom is passed down from one generation to the next. So it's not that morality is something that you decide as a group, but it seems like it's something that's evolving, something that you've learned, you discover as a race, as the human race, as we would, for lack of a better word, evolve over time. Right? So by trial and error, we've learned that this certain thing is wrong. Doing this kind of thing is harmful for society as a whole. So we make up this rule not to do that kind of thing as a society. And so those kind of rules help protect society to make allow society to make progress. Otherwise, we'll be going in circle and not make any improvement as we move forward into the future. So that's kind of my thoughts for now.
That's pretty good.
Yield.
Okay, so with that, wait, Robert, it's not your turn yet. This is where I get to respond onto it. Now, I do like what you said, and this kind of leads us into the Frankfurt School, to be honest, because I found out about the Frankfurt School. Now, before anybody loses their minds, I'm not saying that the Frankfurt School is freaking evil. I'm not saying that they were saints, okay? But to look at it from a unbiased, neutral point of view, and from what you just said, okay, these were thinkers who looked at society and said, maybe economics isn't enough. Maybe culture itself shapes people. That would include religion, family, schools, media, and even our language, okay? So maybe all of these things reinforce power, And I sat there thinking, okay, if institutions shape me, then who shapes the institutions? And that brought up the big question for me, and that's the question that I keep coming back to every time, okay? If religions disappear, what replaces it? Does government replace it? Does science? What about activism? Politics, technology, artificial intelligence. We've been talking about that so much, it's crazy. Because I don't know if humans can exist without believing in something, to be honest with you. Maybe we don't kill gods. Maybe we just trade them in for new ones. You know what I mean? And values go beyond reason, basically. I've been thinking about values lately. Not politics, not religion, not society, just values. Okay, and those things are buried deep inside of us all, and they tell us things like, this is right and this is wrong. I'll die for this, and the older I get, the more I wonder, are values rational? People like to think they are. We like to imagine ourselves as logical creatures. We weigh evidence, we examine facts, we make informed decisions, at least. Now, that's the story we tell ourselves. But history tells a different story. History is full of people who died for ideas, and these ideas were ideas that couldn't be proven. You know what I mean? Ideas that sometimes made no sense at all. So I think right there is probably the best response I can give to that. So, unless you want to make a response to that, Tan, we can have Robert make his comment. No, hold on. I'll let you bring up that what's on your mind, Mark, when we come around, because we still have to come around and let you guys open up with your thoughts. But do you want to?
Let's move on and move on to the next person.
Robert, do you have a response to anything that's been said?
Yeah.
Go ahead and unmute.
Well, it's like this too. You, as a person, you know yourself in 3 different ways, and in each of them 3 different ways, who you are, what you are about, and the depth of who you are says a lot about what you would do, what you won't do, and like if you do not believe in harming people, or you believe in help, you believe not harming, you believe in helping people when they need it. Okay, who's to say that that's good or bad? Because people would look and say, well, that's just another way of what you call it, manipulation. But to know yourself good enough to know what you ain't going to do and harm enough of other people, and your word, and by knowing yourself, and when you say something, people could take and listen to, know who you are by, if you're the type of person that what you say holds some weight there. Okay, people are going to respond to where your actions speak louder than words, and where when people just a half and half, that's the way I can put it, and it throws up a thing that people's not going to be willing to listen, or it's a thing of good possibility blowing hot air up, not being truthful with people. And well, and I forgot the other, with everyone doing their own things, well, it is a thing that people do got to watch out for, because he goes back, well, when you lose, when you don't have much to believe into, okay, if you don't have much to believe into, then you really don't really have that much the thing of believing in yourself or anything else or other people. You wouldn't be willing to be there if they need you. If you see a kid starving and you lose all emotion because you've seen it and you respond to, you wouldn't be there. What do you call it? Where you know who you know.
Well, actually, if you want, let me respond to that, because you brought up something that's actually a good thing that I have been noticing. If you
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, when you talk about that, one thing that I have been noticing, and I try to keep quiet about it, but it does bug me. But like I go onto a lot of streams where I hear people talk a lot of insane stuff, and they don't understand, like, they're actually saying hateful and meaningful things about people who are actually trying to do good things, like the Shriners. Okay, I am never going to say anything bad about the Shriners, because they are trying to freaking come up with a cure for freaking 4-year-old babies. And if you can sit and watch those commercials, the 4-year-olds dying from cancer, and say that freaking that is a horrible organization that is trying to take over the world, then you don't have a moral compass, in my opinion. Okay, And people will do that on the internet, and they don't even think about the consequences, and they don't think about reality and what's really taking place in the world. That's really something that I wanted to respond to and say that, because that's the one thing I took from what you said there. Now, with that being said, I want to turn over the reins to Mark Edworthy, because he's been having some very, very interesting expressions on his face. And he wanted to say something, and I had to cut him off. And that's the job of a moderator, Mark. Okay, I gotta cut you rebels off so that freaking you don't crosstalk. So after that, we will go on to Bob Dub, because I know she's probably got some interesting things to say too. So start with you.
Thankfully, I've been jotting down notes anyway, so I can remember. Just on your last point of charities and adverts and stuff, I can think of a couple of charities that will, or NGOs, that will advertise starving kids and things, and we are aware that those charities a lot of their revenue actually goes back into the company, or into people's wages. So not necessarily towards the projects that they're advertising, or not as much to those projects as they're advertising. So again, I'm thinking of certain charities there, which I won't name, but some of them are somewhat questionable as what they do with the money, with the majority of the money. I was just thinking, was Tan was speaking. Actually, I'll come back to Tan in a minute. But Robert, you brought up an interesting point about double standards. But again, this really goes back to my last point about how certain individuals will talk the talk, but not walk the walk, so to speak. They will encourage certain values into people, but they will not uphold those values themselves. I mean, we see it in politics quite often these days, unfortunately. Individual beliefs. Okay. This actually goes back into Tan's point. You talked about generational evolutionary concepts, and I think that we do learn from previous generations, but there is always the danger of actually forgetting history, or believing in a narrative that may not be as accurate to history as is really. There is a danger of those people who can speak the loudest, may that be media, may that be politicians, may that be groups, attempting to rewrite history, and then forcing their own, and then basing their own concept of history on the collective within that sort of moral concept, moral framework. So, as an example, we've seen people like Netflix, the BBC, promoting that certain cultures have been created solely due to one ethnic group, when in reality that is not necessarily true. And then using that standard to uphold or to promote what those certain groups consider to be moral, which may not in effect be moral. Also, when you something I keep on thinking about when you say faith and the concept of let's say gods or God singular, and the concept of morality coming from God. I'm thinking of Moses and tablets. I could make an argument that man is not created in God's image, but God is created in man's image. Therefore, we initially create a moral framework, and then we use an entity to promote, or a entity to promote that moral framework onto others. Again, that's sort of controlled morality from a select few people, which does raise some concerns. Yeah, I think I'll leave it like that.
Now, before I pass it over to Bob Dub, I do want to say I am so proud of you, Mark Edworthy, for taking notes. I am so
He's in
proud
a
of
real debate. What do you expect?
I love that. I love that. Now with
So
that,
professional.
I would like to open this up to Bob Dub so that she can have a response to what Mark had to say, or if you want to talk about anything that has been brought up so far, you can do that too, but kind of respond to his stuff too if you want to. It's up to you.
Awesome. There's so many fascinating things that everybody has said. I think everybody's got such good opinions. My point of view is that I've heard the idea of that we create God in our image, but those words are not what happens. People say words and then they pass them around. Gets passed around society until people start believing things that can't possibly be true. We can't create God. We can describe what we think God is, and we do use ourselves as a model for that, but that doesn't make a God exist or make a concept real. These are just products of our mind. I personally think that societies that defer to a God are usually more mentally healthy, more clean, they have less disease, things go better. But then it depends on the nature of the gods. So it comes back again to what I was saying at the beginning, that morality isn't a fixed thing in people. It's something that starts, like Robert was saying, it starts with little children just knowing. You just know when it's wrong, when somebody comes and takes your toy when you're playing with it. And you know that you don't do that to somebody else. It's a thing that but we go through all these different levels, from that sort of obedience level, from the it feels bad level. We go through conventional, like teenagers, development. Well, everybody's doing it, so that's got to be good. And we get to the place, in the end, we hopefully get to the place where we're aiming for the greater good of the greater number. And it's not about the individual anymore. It's about the community, and then the community of communities. So I would argue that it is not that there are different moralities. I think there is one absolute recognition of what is acceptable behavior. In fact, that's one of the biggest things that came out of the Nuremberg trials, was that people came to terms with the fact that we know in our heart of hearts what is a legal order that we can obey and what is an illegal order that somebody's telling us to do it. We know it's wrong, but we have to do it because we've been given an order. That's one of the fundamental dilemmas that people have with authority, is that authority hands out illegal orders and illegal, I don't know what you call them, declarations. Not illegal, sorry, immoral declarations all the time, and we have to obey it. I mean, like, for instance, paying taxes. Paying taxes is one of the most sadistic, evil thing that you can do to a poor little guy who's earning $5 an hour, and then you take off half his money and say, oh, well, we're going to give it to the rich people because they need a school for their children. You know, sorry, I got down a rabbit hole. Come
Get
back
excited.
to morality. So yeah, I feel that the complication that we're dealing with is that people are all at different levels of morality, and so it's very complicated as adults, because some people have got a 9-year-old's level of morality, some people's got a 12-year-old level of morality, 16 or 18 or 22 or 35, and so we're all in this big boiling pot together where we need a lot of give and take, and it is very hard, because who do you defer to? Is it the priests? Is it the priestesses? Is it the teachers? Is it the doctors? Is it the lawyers? Who do you listen to? And like I said, at the Nuremberg trials, we came back to this thing of, well, we really have to listen to God. Whatever we call God, whatever our concept of God is, there is some innate understanding in human beings of what ultimately is okay to do. Okay, I think that's all I could go on for a long time, Roger, but I think I will yield the floor back. Thank you.
That was actually pretty good. Don't second guess yourself. You responded really great on that. Now that gives Mark Edworthy an opportunity to respond to what you said. So we'll open it back up to you, Mark Edworthy. What are your thoughts?
I'm not sure. On the whole, I think I agree with you, Bob. I cannot think of any sort of would generally disagree with you on this one.
Well, you don't have to respond if you don't want to. We can just move on to the next one. Because what she said was so magnificent, I don't think anybody would disagree with it, to be honest with you. So let's go ahead and like open this up to Tan, because Tan's the guy that definitely would have something to say. Go ahead, Tan.
About Mark's point of us creating God versus God creating us. That is two-way of seeing the world, and there are different ways of seeing the world, and there are right ways and there are wrong ways. And us creating God is not one of the right ways. And that is a reality. Some people actually do that. instead of obeying this supernatural and natural law that's passed down, they reject that law and they say, I know better than this. I know better than to follow that law. I'm going to create my own law. So in effect, they are creating their own God. They're rejecting God, so they're making themselves God, basically. Or they create for themselves the image of what they think is a perfect being is, right? Apart from what the actual real perfect being is, that is telling them what to do and what not to do. They just reject that. So there's that. So so that is one of the things that's happening in the world, and you know, I think if you look up and down history, you see that people who create the image of God for themselves end up harming themselves and harming society. It's a selfish. It comes out of a selfish goal, and so if you're going to build a society, being selfish is not one of the traits that you need to have. Bob's point about paying tax being really a wrong thing, I don't think that originally came out as being a wrong thing to do, right? I think as a society, it came out of a need. It comes out of necessity, where as a society, in order to collectively build something, you need to collectively pool your resource in order to build something that is a collective good, a society that we would all benefit, right? It's just over time, people start abusing that idea of paying taxes. So they make something that originally intended for good into something that is morally bad. So those are my 2 points.
Excellent. So, with that being said, do you want to respond to that, Mark?
Yeah. On the point of taxes, it's an interesting one. I mean, we all want the potholes in the streets to be fixed. We all want good medical coverage, or for those of us who have the sort of state-based insurance rather than private sector. We all want a good police force. We all want good, I don't know, fire emergency services. So yeah, problem with taxes is that it can be easily abused, and in the UK at this present moment we are seeing extreme levels of taxes being perched, and those taxes, that revenue may not be used for the best usage it could be used for, but because of the higher amount of tax, we're seeing individuals and companies leaving the UK, and therefore they're not paying their taxes because they're no longer in the UK. So there's a sort of balancing act there. On Tan's point, you remind me of the sort of you will not follow false gods sort of thing, and the argument of the state becoming God. It's a very sort of left-wing sort of socialist, or very extreme socialist concept of you will worship the state. The state is now your parents. The state is now your God. The state is now your master, and the state will decide the morality. Going back to my previous point, politicians deciding, and politicians in effect becoming gods in themselves in the respect. I think I'll leave that alone.
All right, that was actually a pretty good response. Now, Robert, let me put that down. I'm sorry. That was actually a pretty good response. But now we're gonna open this up for Robert to respond to you, because he was trying to tell me something and I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. So if you guys know what he's talking about when it comes to this, we'll first let Mark respond to it, because we want to keep the crosstalk down. But with that, I'm going to open it up to Robert. He was talking to me about it, but while we were muted. But I told him it'd be best just to bring it into the stream, and let you guys hear it. So with that, go ahead, Robert.
Well, it's like during the 1920s, when all the people were coming from other countries, the Italians, it was like the Italians created it. And what they did is they went through with this ideal that everyone, it was no mobsters, no nothing of it, but they would raise money to help the stores, and where when things that needed to be fixed in places and all that within in their community, in the stores, when the stores really need a lot of fixing, or to help pay for people salaries and all that. Well, everyone pitched in and did it, and it was and the ideal actually took off real well, and it prospered. Now that's what we got as our the way they set up the rules about the money and all that here in the U.S. about why they put the money down like that to collect it and all that. And the corruption of that ideal is the mob. That's when the mob went and got their ideals into, if you don't pay, we do this to your store. But people have taken a good ideal and flipped it over to where it's no longer a good idea. Like during I did not know this until it was brought up. The the expiration dates on containers. Does anyone tell me when it was first created and by who? And it really be surprised. It's just the ideal.
This isn't for questions.
Oh, okay.
This is a debate. Hold up. Okay. Because we don't do the cross talking, okay?
Well,
so just talk.
The guy, Al Capone, is the one that came up with the expiration of his moonshine, because there was a lot of people that was getting sick and dying from it.
Okay.
And after enough people got sick from it, he started putting down the date when it was manufactured, and that's when that came up. And morals, people say you can be born with them, but it has to be something more than that. It has to be something within you yourself, everything about who you are as a person, that morals will work or won't work. The concept of right and wrong has to be there. People have to fully understand what is and what ain't. Because, perfect example. Look what happened at the church. churches, about with the children, politicians, and all that. And right from wrong, these people they were they went to college as well. Their intelligence and all that. They believed it, like Son and Sam, or the guy that believed in he was hearing the dog talking to him, and he believed whatever that dog would tell him to kill. But morals didn't even enter into the thing of say yes or no if it was right or wrong, or if it's true or not what he's hearing. If you hear something, you try to find out if it's actually what you have heard, or it was just a glimpse of whatever you thought it could have been, not face value on what could have been, the person said. And where when people start to go on to the point where with morals, and to me, and even with morals, how far is morals goes to what people, how far does morals go with people? Because a lot of says one thing.
Okay, so
Them says one thing.
do you have any kind of response to Mark? Because like here in a minute we'll turn it over to Bob Dub, and then we'll take it to you to where you can say your piece. But we gotta kind of keep this moving on. Okay, so are you done for now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're muted, but
I just mute myself.
Okay. So now I just wanted to say one thing when it comes to, well, first, do you have a response that you want to make, Mark?
I was muted. I was just when you were talking about the Italian sort of mafia, Sicilian mafia, Italian mafia, and the 1920s. You brought me. I was just remembering an old TV series called the Lawless, US TV series called the Lawless Years. 1959 to 1961, and that was all about this police officer, US police officer, in the 1920s, looking at the issue of mobsters in I think it was New York, how you had these small communities of mobsters that will support local businesses, but if those as long as the local businesses gave them a percentage of their revenue, if those local businesses didn't provide the share of the revenue, then so-called accidents, quote unquote, would happen. So these Italian mobsters would create a moral framework and would protect their constituents, if you like, for lack of a better word, but will also use that as a racket. So they will create a moral framework to make sure that these businesses are protected, but will actually break the moral framework themselves to make sure that the businesses actually make sure that they are paying revenues to the mobsters. And you could argue that up to a point, taxation is a bit like that. Up to a point, I mean, I'm not saying that if you don't pay the government so much money, you're going to get your legs broken. Of course not, but you can make an argument that they will use measures, any legal measures, to make sure that you pay those taxes, even though those measures may not be so moral. Yeah, I was going to bring up another point, but it's totally escaped me. But yeah.
You had a brain fart.
Yeah, sort of.
Okay, so with that, I do want to respond to on that, because there was some actually good points, and it's like whenever I left off, I said that as people, we do want to make informed decisions, and we tell ourselves that we make informed decisions. At least we think that's what we tell ourselves. But if you take a look at history, history tells a different story. It's full of people who died for ideas, and a lot of these ideas that they're ideas that couldn't even be proven. Okay. You'll find ideas that sometimes didn't even make any sense at all, and you find that in a lot of things concerning religions. Revolutions are big on that. Kings, country, people die for a flag and ideologies, even. You know what I mean? People have marched into wars believing they were absolutely right, and that brings us to what we were talking about with the Nazis. They believed 100% that they were doing what was absolutely right for their country. Okay? Now, people have blown themselves apart for causes that would be terrorists, and they believed it 100% that they were doing that, and it was absolutely right.
And
No, we don't. Now, people have starved rather than betray their beliefs. You know what I mean? So if values are like purely rational, would any of that make sense? You know what I mean? I don't think so. When it comes to that, and the whole thing when it comes to like the mafia and what Robert was talking about, that really brings me to something that I do want to do something about too, because I think like Mark, when you said this far leftist thing, I wish that was true, but it's like I said in the last episode, like with sociology, they treat sociology like a tool, okay? And it's not just these far left liberals that are using sociology, it's conservatives too. They're teaching children frickin' socialism in Sunday schools, okay? And everybody's are just overlooking like that. That's not a big deal, and it really is a big deal, and I'll say it again, like I said in the last episode, I think sociology is probably the most dangerous tool that has ever been created by the human race. It's going to end up destroying every freaking fiber of our freaking being if we keep allowing it to take place, and I really, really do believe that. I believe that it is a very, very dangerous tool, So with that, I am going to shut up. I said my piece, and if you want to respond to what I have to say, you can.
Right. I did correct myself when I used the far left. I did states afterwards the socialist extremists. So I didn't actually. The far left thing was a bit of a slip of the tongue. Again, the argument about far left, far right, in my view, is the same argument. At the end of the day, I did remember what I was going to say. I forgot earlier. the Italian mobster thing sort of made me also think about small government and local, much more localized government. One of the arguments that we have at the moment is that governments are too big, too overbearing. We need much more smaller. We need more localized governments, and that will be more in favor of protecting their smaller societies. Obviously, have a sort of national sort of framework, of a national sort of concept, but when it comes down to day-to-day sort of concepts, keep it on a sort of much more localized area. Yeah.
Okay, so that was actually pretty good. Now, since everybody has had a chance to respond to him, hold up, Robert's trying to butt in. I have to tell him shut up. Since he's said his piece and we've all been able to respond to it, and he's been able to do his rebuttals, we move on to Bob Dub now. So we'll go to Bob Dub because Tan looks like he's really in the middle of something that's important. I think his woman is bringing smack down on him. So we're going to let her take care of her socialist duties. And I had to do that because the Otto's not here, you know. So we gotta contribute somehow for Otto. So let's open this up to Bob Dub and get her thoughts, and then we'll all be able to comment on those. So I'll hand it over to you, Bob Dub.
Thank you. I think I agree a lot with what Mark and Robert have been saying about how these things get implemented with goodwill and good intention and get perverted, things get twisted. I'm not sure where I stand on this thing of far right and far left and everything, except that I believe that the way that we create division in communities and in the world is by taking a side. I think that everybody has a point of view and everybody needs to be included at the level that their point of view is relevant. And I think it's really, really important to keep socialists in their place where they are needed, because every society needs socialists, because socialists take care of the even distribution of resources. That's their concern. That's their one concern. And when you have a mom who has 4 children, you really want that mom to be a good communist and to make sure that all of her children get an equal amount of the resources. You really, really do. And there are other places where things are relevant. And a really good example to show this is a book. A book has pages with writing on it, blank pages, pages with pictures on it, pages with a title on it, or pages with word descriptions, contents of. There are lots of different things. You take one of those pages out, the book is not complete. You might still get the overview of what's going on, but you don't get the complete book. And I think mankind is like that. We're all here. We're all doing our best. We're all at different stages of intelligence, education, awareness, duty, all these things. And we all have a role to play. I don't believe in that thing that you should keep women out of politics and politics is a man's business. But I do believe that politics is a very masculine thing. And it is about comes down to being about killing. What you kill and what you don't kill to keep your people safe. Like, we've decided not to kill other people. But if those other people come to kill us, that's very awkward, because like, what do you do about killing when you've decided killing's wrong and somebody's going to come and kill you? Do you allow yourself to die like the Buddhists allowed themselves to die? And then all these masses of really, really good, wonderful people get wiped out by aggressive, violent, less developed races. So it's something that we as humanity have battled with for centuries. And I think the way Robert described it as that implementing of sort of a communal voluntarist society where everybody put their money forward for the good of their community, and then a criminal organization came in and usurped that and used it for their own selfish, greedy needs. That's where the problem is that we really have. It's not about left or right or ideology or any of these things, I think. I think what it's really about is stopping the criminals, because the criminals have taken over in this current iteration of our political environment in the world. We see that the biggest sway, the biggest voice, almost the most power that there is in the hands of the criminal elements. And those criminals might be white collar or blue collar or street corner criminals. But basically a criminal is somebody who isn't acting for the greater good of the greater number. So yeah, I think my point can be just summarized in that I believe by taking sides, by taking a definite point of view, you increase the division between people. And I think that in order to maximize cooperation and empathy between people, we need to be able to stand within the middle of paradoxes and say this thing appears wrong and this thing appears wrong, but where is the goodness of it? Surely these things, we don't need to reject the entire way of thinking of a certain thing. Like socialism, like capitalism. I'm very, very, very against capitalism, but I don't advocate that we get rid of it because we don't have something better, even though in my opinion it's a very, very flawed system. It's all we've got right now. So to ditch it for something lesser is more foolish. So yeah, I think that in the end, it comes down to how do we administer communities so that, yeah, I don't even know what. So just how do we administer communities? How do we administer communal money? How do we make sure that children are protected? How do we make sure that the psychopaths don't get their fingers in the pies? How do we make sure that people don't come and kill us when we're trying to be nice and they just want to blow themselves? Yeah, okay. I think I got enough examples there. I think I can stop now. Thank you, Roger. I hand back.
That is very good. I do want to open this one up because this is actually where it comes to where I was talking about with values. You know what I mean? And I really do believe that values may exist somewhere beyond logic, to be honest with you. Okay? Maybe they live in like this strange place where your identities, your emotions, or your memories, and even hope all collide together. You know what I mean? Like it could be like a place where facts become secondary or something, where like I don't know, like reason becomes a lawyer, you know, defending what the heart already decided a long time ago, basically, you know. And that's a pretty frightening thought if you think about it, because if values transcend above reason, then how do we know we're right? You know, how do we know that the beliefs we've cherished all this time aren't just simply, you know, the stories we've inherited from our parents who had values, and their parents who had values, you know. And of course every society has had values, and religions have all had values. You had political movements too, which are supposed to have had values, but that's kind of debatable. But every institution claims to know what is good. You know what I mean? Every generation believes it has more enlightened, and they're more enlightened than the last one. You know what I mean? This isn't something new that's happened just recently. Like everybody, you didn't trust anybody over 30 when we were younger. Remember that? That was an old saying that everybody used to believe in, and it was true. You know, in our minds, it was true. And every generation, they eventually become history themselves. So where do values come from? You know, do they come from God? Do they come from society, from biology? You know, do they come from suffering? Or do they come from like culture? Or are they somewhere else entirely? You know, I don't know, you know. So that's how I respond to what you just said, because you said a lot of good stuff, and I wanted to bring that up. And with that, I'm
I
going,
agree. I agree.
you know, and with that, I'm going to bring it back around because Mark Edworthy was before you, Tan is after you. So I'm going to let. Did you want to respond to what I said, by the way, Bob Dub? Because it was your.
Yeah, okay, let me. I think that it's very difficult. I think you're right. Where does it come from? And when there are so many people who form different values, what is the sort of overarching umbrella attitude that we take towards? When I was teaching at school, I was fresh over from Africa, and the kids, Kiwis are very, very insular. There's the Kiwi way, and this is how we do it, and this is how it's done. And they're very rejecting of foreigners. And so the children would cross-examine me the whole time on who I was and where I was, and how come I had any right to teach in a New Zealand school. And so we used to have lots of quite difficult times where they were challenging me. And one of them came to school one day, and her mother had beaten her very severely with the pipe of a vacuum cleaner. And I said, that's shocking. That's absolutely terrible. Have you told the police? And she was furious with me. She said, you don't understand anything, miss. This is our culture. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. There is no culture of beating people with a. But she sincerely believed that because her mother had been beaten with a vacuum cleaner hose, and her great grandmother, that somehow vacuums were God-given discipline machines. I couldn't even argue with that. So yes, it's a very, very difficult thing, and you need to be very sensitive and gentle with people when you can see that they have violated sort of basic fundamental human rights. Yeah, that's my response, Roger.
Roger, can I respond?
That you're actually you're next. Sorry, I was going to say that, but then I forgot she had to respond. So.
I'm excited that Bob is shocked that she was witnessing discipline. I think like 50, 60 years ago. Isn't that kind of the same kind of practice in America? Where the dad would just whip out a belt if the child misbehaved. And those children grew up to be very well-behaved, good members of society. On the other hand, look at today's world, where parents let their children do whatever they want, no discipline. And if one day 12-year-old wakes up, a boy wakes up, decides I'm I'm a girl. I'm gonna go change myself. 50 years ago, he would got a good beating, right? But now, okay, who am I to say, right? You decide what's best for you. So there's that. So the point is, disciplining that harshly might not be um, good by today's standard, but back then it was kind of a norm, and it gave it gave discipline. Basically, the principle is you discipline bad behavior, and the children know when they behave badly, they get punished, and that's the thing that they grow up into adulthood having learned that there are consequences to your action. In today's world, on the other hand, there's no consequence. Or virtually, there's no consequence to your behavior at all. So, but that is a lie, right? In reality, there is consequence to your behavior, and they keep being fed that lie that it's okay to do whatever you want. But in life, they will end up hurting themselves. They will learn the consequence of their wrong decision by themselves because they have chosen not to listen to their parents. So then back to Roger's point, I think Roger made that point about every generation thinks they can do better than the previous generation. And I think that's something inherent in our rebellious nature of humanity, where I think we all went through this phase where when we was a teenager, we grew up, I think, Dad's doing all this, making all this mistake. I think I would never make the kind of mistake that he does if I grew up and be at his age and live his life, right? And then we'd end up making the same mistakes our parents do, right? Over and over again. It's the pride. It's the pride nature of our youth. So Roger's right. Every generation thinks they can do better, and then every generation makes the mistakes that his grandparent makes, right? So every 3 generations, you go back to the first part. So that's why the grandparents love the grandchildren more than their parents. That's my theory. Right. I yield over to you, Roger.
Sorry for the slowdown. It takes me a minute to unmute everything so that I can get things organized and brought to you guys in a good fashion. So I now am going to hand this back to Bob Dub because this is her comment and he made his statement, and this is your chance to rebuttal.
All right, so thank you. I don't disagree with corporal punishment at all, Tan. I think that it's really important part of bringing a child up is to be able to punish them and for them to be able to feel pain. But I also feel that when a 16-year-old is beaten by their mother with a hoover, the image of that mother running around after the child, that's not disciplining your child. That's not how you discipline your child. That was my point. Discipline must come first from the parents, and it must be handed out in a proper way. And when the child has learned to reason beyond being able to experience pain, then they should be taught to reason through their discipline. But I brought my children up believing that. And he had 2 children, decided he was a woman, and decided to change his sex. So his children now have 2 mothers. So I am in a place where I actually question everything that I thought that I believed about the world, because I believed that by being a Christian and by upholding Christian principles and bringing my children up according to what I thought was the standard of right, that they would just naturally be conforming members of society. And for me to have a daughter that won't have children, a daughter that isn't alive, a son that's gay and won't have children, and a son who has had children and now just decided he's a woman, that to me, I don't know another family that has that amount of sexual identity problem in their children. And so even though I'm prepared to offer these opinions, I'm offering them as somebody who's deeply heartbroken and soul searching as to what on earth is this consequence that I'm facing from trying to be a really good mother and ending up with children who are obviously not well adjusted in the mainstream definition of that. I mean, that my kids, my youngest son dropped out of school when he was 16 with depression. My oldest two children were on the honor roll of everything. They were the top of the school. They graduated with everything. They went through university. My eldest daughter has got a PhD, I believe. My son is a software engineer who virtually runs the back end and front end of a very large employment company. My children are very, very wealthy, well-adjusted, successful members of society. And yet they are almost poster children for all the criticisms that we have for the younger generation. Like, how did well-meaning mothers like me bring up this generation of children? So yeah, that's got a very personal, sorry, Roger, I hope I didn't overstep a boundary there. But I do just want to bring that this isn't a professional opinion here. This is actually heartbroken mother speak, in this corner.
This is your time to speak. It's like I said, and I'm not cross-talking. I'm just interjecting so that you understand this is your time to say whatever you want to say. That's what's so important about this show, okay? And again, I want to ask everybody to be respectful. No cross-talking, because when you do that, you're taking away from that person as well as yourself. So just with that being said, I'm going to shut up now, and thank you. So this is your moment to talk. Now it's Robert's turn, and this is where he's going to start being a wild man. So with that,
rules.
With the rules. I've been disciplining him. He's behind the scene. He says I'm gonna be good. So hopefully he does do a good job and he's not mean to you or anybody else. I don't think he will, because he loves you to death. So with that, I'm gonna open it up to you, Robert.
Okay. Well, yeah, but here's the thing. It's like with all kids. Okay, they know the limitations of what the parents are. They know the mentally abilities of the parents, inside and outside, what they can do and what they can't do. They know that by doing certain things that they can get the response, or showing them how far can they go and what things that triggers you for the response that you're going to react to in front of them. And they use that, because I've seen how kids, 1 minute they're nice and complete to their parents, but then behind closed doors they're doing something else, or they do certain things to get things going for their where it benefits them. It's by the simple things that what they've noticed what parents do and how they respond to it. And it just, it's like your your abilities, your the all three things. If you can't, if you do not know yourself how you respond to certain things, and by them watching that, your kids do, or anyone else too, they use for what they see, and they use that to manipulate the situation for however they want. Okay, it's like with politics. Politics, they know that if they do phrases, words in a certain way, people are going to respond to it in however way they want. They lead people by the nose to whatever they so choose. And they think that stupidity is a good thing, but not always in the thing of stupidity to some is the downfall of other ideals that other people have. You know, a person that might look stupid might be intelligent enough to recognize things and all that, and people are what do you call it, overlooking them for what's going on. Okay, and like with and people when people do that thing of manipulation of situations and all that, and like Tim was saying, okay, and for one thing, kids today they just they just don't, yeah, they're doing that, but they're causing creating more of a problem for them later on, because for what they do now, what happens to them when they have a family as well, okay, for what they don't learn from him as an adult, it's going to follow into their life as well as a boy or a woman, okay. But then when that situation comes popping up, and they look and they might not say it point blank to anyone's face, but it's my life, I will do as I so wish. But then when they come knocking on the front door, okay, and tears run down their eyes and say, "I need your help." Well, I look at it like this: where was these words at when I was trying to explain the same situation to you as a child? Why there are certain rules that you have to apply by, and certain things you got to be aware of around you at a young age. Because when you're living on your own, it's completely a different thing, 100%. I mean, that thing of, well, I can't wait till I hit 18. Well, when they do, it changes the whole outlook of your mind, your setting, a piece of your mind and all. Because you no longer have your parents. You no longer have where they would, you can pull stuff on them, because your parents can close the door and say, hey, they don't have to acknowledge all the head games that you do. They don't have to permit you to do it. Okay. And that's the problem with today's kids. They think that they do that as a child, and they see how their parents, they understand what they can do and how they can do it. They can do that as well as an adult, to where they can still pull mom and dad's chain, and where if they need money, they can try to sweet talk them into giving it to them or whatever they want. And like, but they got their own family, they ain't learned the things of the important things. And like you're saying about the book, Bob, well, the problem is with that book, when you rip one page out to me, is that you just don't understand the book. You're missing out the whole thing, because that whole one page throws everything off. You don't fully understand the whole book of the grants and all that. And if you can't understand the book because of one page is missing of any page, then can you actually live by that book? Can you actually fully understand it? And could you live by the book as well too? Because people say that if you understand things like your emotions.
Okay, so hold on. Let's give Bob the time to respond to you because you said a crap load of stuff, and I know she wants to respond to some of it. So give her a second. Do you want to respond, Bob Dub?
I think what you say is beautiful. I love it. Everybody is responsible for themselves, yes. And if there is one person you really know in the world, it's your mom and your dad. That's two people. But I think that my generation has failed. I think the world is in chaos. I think somehow our parents have lived to be really old, and we didn't get to leave home. We always had our parents like watching us. I think we fumbled. I think it's absolutely horrendous that the leading cause of death in the world today is women killing their babies before they're born. Who are we? Who the bleep, Roger, are we as a species if that's what our women are doing? No wonder children. I mean, do children know that their brothers and sisters were killed before they came along? Or does it just happen in the family that there's 3 or 4 and then the next one gets killed? And we've got COVID that's rippling through society. We've got a huge amount that we've got to deal with. And, Roger and Robert and me, we've all just lost our mom, our dad. Not my dad. My dad's fading. But you suddenly start seeing life differently when you don't have adults around and you're the adults. And you start thinking, well, maybe what I did wasn't good enough, and maybe now's the time to stand up and say something about it and say that it's good to take a change, make a strong change. And it's not only the children's responsibility to be who they are, it's the parents' responsibility to be able to be brave enough to go and say, you are wrong. Please, we're not doing this. That's not, there's a way. I don't know how it is because I feel that's. So yeah, Robert, that's my response to what you said. I think what you said is very, very sensible and very, very profound. And I'm really, really pleased that you shared it. And I'm glad that you've given me this opportunity to tell you also how I've been thinking around that, because I've also been mulling that over in my mind. All right, I yield back. Thank you, Roger.
Okay, so this is where it gets reckless and dangerous. We're going to open this up to Mark Edworthy. Lord Edworthy. It's your turn. It's your turn.
Okay, I've got a few controversial points here. I don't know. Just a short one as the beginning. The abortion question. I know this is a really hot topic in Muslim world. My view is the old British is really related to the old British abortion Act of 1962, I think, before it was amended last year. That a child is not a child until after the 24-week period of digestion. I'm sorry.
Gestation.
Indeed. Thank you. Therefore, they're not sentient being until that point. So, killing baby, it's technically not a baby, prior to the 24-week period. No, Bob, you were going to say something, so please do.
I think that's an important distinction. And if we live inside a society where we've accepted this rule, then I think that's a very good cutoff line to draw. My point is not about the actual facts as much as it is about the attitude of a human being who will casually kill its offspring. It just, to me, is not humane. It's not motherly. It's not nurturant. It's not. Fundamentally, it repels me to think that we're allowing ourselves to kill our children, our babies. Have you ever held a newborn baby? You hold it and it kind of like snuggles into you as if you were the most important thing in the whole world. There is some miracle in life that is inexplicable until you've carried it in your own body. And it might not be sentient, but it's your flesh and blood, and you kill it deliberately. It's just so sad. Sorry, I'm a girl. Practically, we need to deal with issues. And we need to keep our population under control. And we have two ways of doing it. One is just by child sacrifice, and the other is by war. And the harm that comes from war is much worse to a society than the harm that comes from child sacrifice. So practically, we have to deal with the issue. But spiritually and emotionally, how do we integrate that cost? All other societies who have allowed child sacrifice have died out. There's something anti-life, which is not to say that war's good. Okay, cut me off, Roger. Is there a bell?
We don't have a bell, but that brings me to the question I need to ask: is that when you had Bob Dup answer you, was you giving up your response for
no. I saw Bob's reaction, so I thought it was only fair to.
So all right, do you have more that you need to say?
I've got more. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And I've got another very controversial point related to family stability and the point of the ideal being two parents, one father, one mother, and if possible, cooperative grandparents. The idea of having that sort of family stability brings consistency into life, brings a form of morality, if you like, into life. And I know, especially at this present moment, that is a very controversial point. And we're seeing at the moment that we're seeing easy breakdowns of families. And in some cases, even the state becoming the so-called family. which is a dangerous thing in itself. When I was growing up, mum and dad were around, and they got married just a couple of months before I was born, and what was it, 2023, mum died. So they were married for between 76 and 2023, so 48 years. And they had a sort of and they were both extremely close to my grandparents on my father's side. The mother's side's totally different. I know I'm going into that, but there was a very sort of consistent and stable family sort of life. I experienced a fairly stable, consistent family sort of life. What's going on? And I criticised the state and authority figures, but throughout my secondary education, so my high school years, for the most part, the teachers were actually relatively good. Obviously, not all of them were perfect. And there were questions, or there's some of them, but they also brought a form of stability into my life. So the family relations and also the education I've had brought a form of stability. Roger, you mentioned talking to when we were growing up, talking the no-no of talking to people over 30. I seem to remember that back then it was a much more local where I've been was brought up. It was a much more localized sort of society. Up to a point, everybody kept a local community. Everybody sort of they weren't overly prying. There was some concerns between local community members. And the old thing about being able to go out in the streets to play, to do whatever as a kid, and without being fearful of being spoken to by some strange 30-something weirdo was a sort of thing back then. So yeah, you could go out and play, make sure you're back home for tea time, dinner, 6, 7 o'clock, whatever. And society was, generally speaking, and we'll use this, we just go into generalizations. Society was much more predictable, much more I wouldn't say insular, much more society was much more roundly formed. If that makes sense. I'm not saying that that's true for every single community, but in my own experience, it was. Okay.
Okay, so with that being said, if Bob Dub doesn't want to respond anymore, we'll hand this over to Tan so that he can say his words of wisdom for us, because I know he's got a lot to say. He's been quiet. I think he tried to clean his forehead by flipping the camera off. He was using his middle finger. He was getting riled up. So.
No, I'm not.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't have any really rebuttals to Mark or Bob or
No, this
Robert.
is your chance to say what your thoughts are, and then we respond to you. So
I want to offer something. Being a Catholic, since abortion was brought up, to be, it seems like everybody believed. The majority of us here, maybe with the exception of Mark Edworthy, believe that abortion is one of the greatest evils of our time. And I wanna bring something in the Catholic Church. Um, Back in the maybe late 60, there was an encyclical released by Pope Paul VI called Humani Vitae, which is literally on human life. Uh, it was his response to the sexual revolutions in the 60s, about the wave of people with the mentality of free love, and and there will be promiscuity is allowed among young people, and so sex was just like a amusement or enjoyment thing. So and of course contraception is a big part of that, out of being that, because you want to have fun but you don't want any commitment, and there are consequences to that. And so Pope Paul VI released this encyclical. In it, he basically predicted the consequences of the sexual revolutions, with the contraceptive mentality, and he predicted that the end result of that kind of mentality would lead to less respect for women, because men now get to use women as a way to gratify their urges without any consequence of the result. So that will lead to more divorces if they're for a marriage couple, and it will lead to higher rates of abortion. Just consequence of this free sexual revolution, free love, anything, the hookup culture kind of thing. So I think his prophecy, they're not prophecy, but they're sort of prophetic predictions of the consequence of the culture that we were leading towards. And I think a lot of what he has said has come true. I just want to offer that up.
that is excellent. Now, with that being said, I do want to say something about that. I know this. Okay, now when it comes to abortion and it comes to things that we've been discussing tonight, I know that most people rarely abandon their values because of facts. Okay, you never hear of. I know this one guy who said this a while back, and he, I'm sad to say he committed suicide because of alcoholism, but he said that you never hear of people freaking going to war because 1 + 1 = 2. Okay, everybody knows that 1 + 1 = 2, and that's a rational thought. Okay, and nobody, people rarely abandon their values because of facts, ever. They abandon them because of pain, because of love, because of loss, because they meet somebody, or because they grow old. That's a big one. Once you start growing old, you start you start abandoning what your facts are, or your values are. They usually do it because life humbles them. You know, now the thing for me is the human mind is a very, very strange thing. Okay, it can know how something is true and still refuse to believe it, no matter how much you want to believe that freaking in something. You know, you can sit there and tell somebody that this is the facts, and no matter how much you do that, they will not freaking believe you. Okay, they will refuse to believe it. Uh, it can believe, you know, it can believe something that would it can actually believe in something, you know, basically with all of your heart, and you don't even have to have evidence for it. You know what I mean? There's no reason, there's no values. It's nothing like that. And reason and values, they sometimes they don't even walk together. You know what I mean? And sometimes they live like in completely two different worlds. So that brings me to a lot of questions that I have. You know, and first of all, you know, the one thing that I really think about is like you know, if people aren't governed primarily by reason, then who shapes the values they live by? You know what I mean? A lot of it. I mean, is it religion? Is it schools? Government. You know, we've talked about all that. We've talked about family. I think the only thing that we haven't brought up so far, because I know we mentioned social media here, but what about television? You know, then we've also mentioned books, the books we read. You know, and you also have to think about like the people we've loved. You know what I mean? Maybe the stories they choose to tell. You know, or the stories that we choose to tell ourselves. Because for me, I think human beings aren't rational creatures seeking truth. I think that maybe we're storytellers, you know, and we're desperately searching for meaning and calling the stories we cherish our values, basically. You know, that's something that I really get from it. And you know, I mean, you can base all the stuff that you want to off of all these things, but that's really what it comes down to. You gotta ask yourself, you know, what shapes the values that we live by. You know what I mean? So that's the only response I can really get from that. And I can say, so I'm gonna shut up now, and if you want to respond to it, you can, or we can have somebody else respond to it, but it's up to you, Tam.
No, sorry, I was muted. No, I don't have any comment to what you just said, Roger. Seems all right.
Okay, so with that, let's talk to the wild man. Let's let the wild man say something. Let him out of his cage. Robert.
Who, Robert?
Robert, yeah. That's his nickname for this group. He is the wild man.
I actually thought you were talking about Mark Edworthy, but
oh, he's a close second. Like last week, him and Otto were just ferocious.
Well, I can only say is morals and your conscience. Okay, if a person don't really realize what either one is, can they really assume or face the facts that for what's going on right there in front of them, or for what's going on for what they're thinking? Can they actually fully understand what they're thinking, comprehend of the idea of what's going on? And like what you were saying, Bob, about, well, if a person does not mind to put themselves in physically and emotional distress, then that's something there. Because if you, I've heard a few females about that situation, says that until they never would have thought, but when they would walk down the road and they see children, how the mental the mental of seeing children responds to what has happened, what they have done. And they said that there is just no way, mentally or physically, you can bypass that, the emotions of that. And to go through something like that, like how some of them, they have no, I don't see the thing of doing it like 3 to 5 times straight, because I mean, that, like everyone says, where does the person believe in life? If a person's willing to do that 5 times or have that done, like if a guy wants a woman to have that done 5 times, does that says something about the guy, his own peace of mind, how he thinks of that situation above himself. Okay, because I you always hear about how we can't afford this, we can't live like this, and all that. But then that where when a situation should, like everyone have said, mentally you should be thinking, are we able mentally to raise a child mentally and physically and financially without going through the process and then popping up with that thing until after the fact. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out about your moral. And can people say that they have morals and understand what the morals are? Different types of morals. Okay, what for everything that does happen in life, uh, how what would you be? How would you live in that situation with your morals, your understanding of your morals? How can you fully understand that? Okay, I'm done.
So Dan, this is
Mhm.
actually where
Can I
you're
comment?
yeah, that's where you respond. So
Like what Robert said, but one point that struck me about seems like question is don't have a child until you're ready to have a child, kind of thing. Are you ready to have a child? And in so being Vietnamese Canadian, being Vietnamese in Vietnam, there's a saying that says you give birth to the child, then you give birth to the father. It means you'll never be ready to be a parent, but you jump into it. Basically, when your first child is born, you are never ready. No matter how ready you think you are, you'll never be ready. But you will jump to it, hands on, and you learn as you go along. You make mistakes, and you learn from the mistakes, and you move on to the next child. So I think, but Robert's point is, I think that's a mentality that a lot of people are having these days. That I'm not ready to have children, so I'm just gonna keep holding on. I'm just gonna keep focus on my career. And then one day they wake up, they find out that they're too old to have children. Um, you know, back in my village, people were having kids when they're 16. My mom is 16 years older than me. um, and back then, people seems to be much happier than we are now. I think marriage and family does something to the happiness of the person. So I think a lot of the mental issues and stress that sort of like artificial in nature that we're having to these in today's day and age are because of the disunity of the family or the lack of a family unit. That's not to say that you're not going to have stress and problems when you have a family and you have kids, lots of. But somehow in the end, and I still feel now after 18, 20 years of having kids, I still feel that it was worthwhile. It was worthwhile a journey to have kids, even though they give us such heartaches and disappointment. You tell them to do something, they said they would do it, and they don't do it, and you end up doing the stuff that you tell them to do. Right? So, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I would be a very lonely person, much more lonely than I am now, without my children. All right, Roger, back to you.
No, that was just so beautiful. I mean, if you kept talking, I would have like given you like this huge internet hug because you're a beautiful man, Tan Hai Tran.
Am I beautiful?
That's a good. That was really a good. So, it's not my turn to respond. This is Mark Edworthy's turn, I think, to respond. I believe after was Robert the one who just spoke.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's your turn, Tan. And then we'll do Bob Dub.
What are we doing again? I just finished my.
He's responding to what you originally brought up. So and then you get to respond to him if you wish to. So.
What did he respond? I just responded. What
you responded to Robert.
I responded.
I need to respond to Mark. I don't.
Let me, please. Yeah. Got very few thoughts on this one. When I was a teenager, there was a big sort of issue in the UK about 16-year-olds getting pregnant, or 16-year-old women getting pregnant, and during the early 90s, and for the most part, as far as I am aware, nobody in my area, or no women in my area at 16 got pregnant. But there was this big controversy. There was this big fear in Britain at the time. And it sort of raised a number of questions. I'm not sure. I think it sort of died out quite quickly, to be fair. There's another issue when it comes to pregnancy and modern day culture. The entire, and I know this is going to be another controversial point, but the entire glass ceiling argument about expecting women to go out to work and then expecting them to get a career and then working throughout all their sort of fertile period, if you like, and then regretting it later. This point sort of again, it's a very controversial point, but there's the entire concept of the West not having sufficient children to keep sort of generational sort of stability at this present moment, and arguably we could go back to the entire sort of concepts of these that's really started in the 60s or started post World War II, but was really pushed in the 80s about women going out to work, giving up the concept of a family, and not looking after getting pregnant and looking at least after the early years of child rearing. And interestingly enough, the entire in the UK at the moment, there's the entire concept of the states being in the increasing child care policies. So state-controlled childcare policies at this present moment. There's an entire argument, and this is just for the concept of expecting to push parents back out to work as quick as possible, pushing both parents back out to work, just for the sake of the glorious GDP figures, but which arguably is doing much more damage to society as a whole. I think I'm going to leave it like that. I think I've spoken enough controversial points so far.
This is where we hand it back to you, Tan High Trend. You want to respond to this?
Not really. I don't see anything Mark said to be that controversial. I mean, at what point, Roger? Let me interject. Let's recap. What is the topic of our discussion again?
Right.
Morality, right?
Right.
What are
right.
the
Right now we are going over what you have brought up, and we're going around so that everybody can comment on what you talked about when it comes to the Catholic Church and abortion. And
Okay.
Robert has already said his. You did a rebuttal. Mark just said his, and we're asking you if you want to do a rebuttal to what he had just said.
No,
Okay.
enough battle.
Okay, how about you, Bob Dub? Are you ready to say something? You're muted. There you go.
I think that the breakdown of the family and the collapse of the birth rates is probably one of the biggest challenges of this the early 2000s whatever century. 21st, is it the 21st century now?
21st century.
And I'm really, really pleased that we're not in a global war, but I think that within 10 years we are going to be, because I think that we need tragedy for people to reevaluate. I think life has got very soft. People the science, to what you were saying on about women going out to work, Mark, I think that the figures show that families can't bring up children without having two parents working. So we've gone away from where being a stay-at-home mom is a choice. It's now a necessity of life. That, like you say, women work all their fertile years. They work. I don't know how we're going to change that. That is a thing about values. Are we going to value our society? Are we going to to, yeah, I think that the question really for the time is, how are we going to change it to be something better? We know we're not quite sure of what the better thing is, but what mechanisms do we have for change in our culture? Because we need a change. Is it blockchain? Is it transparency? Is it that sort of DAO-driven lifestyle where you reward people for what they do rather than pay them for their labor? And I think that the point of being online in this day and age is to engage with people who are really searching for those deep conversations. So I very much value being able to come here and talk these things through with you, because I think the more of us that are engaging our minds like this in small decentralized little cells, the better it's going to be for the human race and for us as a species, so that we don't actually die out to the next virus that comes to attack us. Because the odds are not high at the moment with the way viruses are multiplying. We're not going to die out from technology. We're going to actually die out because the viruses are getting cleverer than we are. So yeah, I think that's my bizarre response to you, Mark. I don't know if it made any sense, but there we go.
It was excellent. It was excellent. Now, do you want to make a rebuttal to that, Tan? Or are you?
Yeah. One comment about it seems that we there's a point that seems that we need a double family income these days to be able to raise a family. I think in general, I think that's true, but I want to bring a couple of examples that I know of families whose the mother decides to stay at home to raise all of their children while the dad goes and work. And the dad's, I think the dad's income is also not something that is it's modest, I would say, but somehow those families end up, they turned out all right. They somehow make do with what they have, and I think they turned out much better than people like me, even, who probably have as a family income of maybe half double of what they make. So there's something to be learned from those family who somehow are able to focus on their family while surviving in a demanding world that we have today. I don't know what that is I don't know what it is that they have, but I just want to point out that there's those who are able to just thrive with modest family income.
That is excellent. So we've done Tan now. This is where we are going to let Robert take us out now. Robert, give us your final thoughts, and if anybody wants to just slam him, just freaking slam the shit out of him. Don't worry about it being taking turns, because we are getting late into the afternoon. So just Robert, you take us out with your final thoughts, and you guys can make your comments when he says it. No, you haven't unmuted yet, so. So you say what's on your mind, and if you guys want to talk to him about it,
Well,
just
like
say something.
Archangel, or well, like okay, there's the different times certain women have rose to the depth of thinking of others by what they would do for just not their that's not for her family but for her nation. Joan of Arc. Okay, look at what she has done. Okay, there was a woman that was back in 1960 during the Fourth War. Her and her brother, she lied to get joined into the military. She's the highest ranking officer in the military 19 in the year of the Fourth War, and she had more things crossed her chest than any generals had from other nations that gave her uh, high praise. And well, um, she passed away at 1972 at the age of I think it was 85 or something like that. I forgot. But she was the highest ranking military woman in the government.
Who are you talking about, Robert?
I can't think of her name. In World War One, she was the highest ranking military officer in the military. At
In
19.
the U.S. military.
No. I can't think of the name. It's overseas. Hey, Raj, can you tell me where that? Um, I can't even pronounce her name. It, but she fought for independence to keep her country.
Okay, so she was a Lady of the Dark, November 19th, 1911, Austria,
Yeah.
Hungarian, and passed away in 1973. The first soldier sovereign Reich is. Okay, so I believe that's it. Is November.
What's her name?
He does.
Up in the front, up on top on the phone.
Milanka Sovic, 1962, Belgrade, Yugoslavia. Malunka. It's Milunka, and it's Savic, Savic. So.
Haven't heard.
And she fought. And when it came to mineral people standing up, she was the only one that the military and all that. She got such high praise from all of them, from all the other countries and all that. They were, I think, it was Sweden, and they all meet up and all that, talk about to and it was 5 years after the war when they all met up, the generals and all that, at the place. And she was the only woman there, and they were concerned why is this she was there for, and she explained why.
Okay, so with that being said, let's
Wait. I found out about her. Let me read up about her.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sweden. Yeah.
Milunka Savic, widely recognized as the most decorated female combatant in the entire history of warfare. She disguised herself in World War One. She disguised herself as a man who to take her brother's place in the Serbian army during the Balkan Wars in 1912. Her identity was discovered after she was wounded, but because of her exceptional capabilities, she was permitted to remain in active combat. She went on to fight bravely throughout World War I, surviving multiple wounds and earning top military honors from Serbia, France, Great Britain, and Russia. She passed away in Belgrade on October 5th, 1973.
There you go.
And what I was saying too, and
Now hold on, we have really gone quite a long time. Okay, so I wanted you to take us out so that we could bring this to a close, and we can come back later next week. I thought what you had to say right there was the perfect way of ending it. Thank you, Tan, for reading that.
Okay.
And that was so good to show what I wanted to do with this show. Okay, we're not slamming women for being women. We're not doing we're actually making this into a show that's having a sensible discussion about the topics. And thank you, Robert, for bringing that up, because I want people to understand that. Like, we aren't trying to mudsling or anything like that. That's not what we're about. So
I thought enough of people and women are doing it because they think of above their own selves, like Joan of Arc and her,
right,
and a few others.
so
And nobody praises for what they do. Think of what they do and how it affects other people by what their actions and their abilities.
okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and close this up. Before we do, I'd like to ask everybody if they're willing to give their socials, starting with we'll start with Bob Dub. Bob Dub, are you willing to give everybody your socials so they know how to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can find me on MintMe. I meant to say Minds. You can find me on minds.com. I am on MintMe as well. Yes, I'm mostly on minds.com.
Okay. And how about you, Mr. Edworthy? How can people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you?
I'm not on MintsMe. At least I don't think I've got an account. Not that I can remember. I'm pretty sure I'm on MintsMe. I would have to check my list. But yeah, I'm on minds.com. Username Edworthy.
Okay. How about you, Tanhai Tran? How can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on primo.net/th2tran, and you go scroll down to the bottom on my first post. That's the link to minds.com.
Okay. You can find me and Robert on minds.com at Roger_Hansen. You can also find us on X at Roger Hansen at ROGLOL1973. Now, we do have a Minds group on Minds for the Praetorian. If you guys want to go in there and check out the Praetorians group, become a part of it, get involved with the conversations. I even post links to come on to the stream if anybody wants to come on and join us in there. You're more than welcome. I also post links so that people come in on my main account, so whenever, and I put the times too. I may have gotten New Zealand messed up, but I forgot. I don't know for sure. Bob W, you put your hand up. Would you like to say something?
Yes. I want to say that actually where I am, where I really want to be, is on Swarm Space. That's Swarm dash space dot lovable dot app.
There you go.
That is where you can find me.
There you go. See, that's thinking right there. Put it out there when you do your stuff. Yeah, good call. And with that, I'd like to say thank you guys for showing up for the show.
What about you, Rogers? What are your socials?
I just did, didn't I?
Nope.
Yes, I did. I said minds.com at Roger_Hansen. And then
you did.
X.
What about Lovable? You're gonna change your website to Roger Hansen.
It is not ready, and when it is ready, it will be awesome.
RogerHansen.lovable.com.
Yeah, we were actually talking about domain names before we started tonight.
It will be awesome, and it will be connected somehow to freaking Swarm Space. But we're gonna wait until it evolves to the level that those guys are on, because they're doing so good with Swarm Space that That
Yeah.
It's just not production ready yet.
right,
Well, check out Swarm Space right now.
right.
Awesome.
Good,
So,
good word of advertising.
so if you like subscribe, or if you like the show, please like, subscribe, share, make comments in the comment section. We would love to hear your
It's
feedback.
actually lovable, that app, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
And,
lovable.app.
we will talk to you guys later. Thank you for watching and have a good night.